Yeah. We back again.
Baby, when we first met, I never felt something so strong. You were like my lover and my best friend, all wrapped in one with a ribbon on it. And all of a sudden, really, I didn't know how to follow. It's like the shot is bumping around, and now my heart dead. I feel so open and hollow, and I never give myself to another the way I did it. Don't even recognize the way she took it. God took a miracle to bring me back,
And you're the one to blame.
and now I feel like, oh, you're the reason why I'm thinking I don't want to smoke my cigarettes no more. And this is what I get for wishing thinking.
Look at this.
Should've never let it end up before.
What's up, peoples? We're vibing a little
Next
bit.
time you want it, don't want to leave. Just you want to do that. 'Cause now I'm using like I'm leave. It's like a chick in the rehab. Baby, I'm like a sleep. It's like a chick in the rehab. Baby, I'm like a sleep. Got a chick in the rehab. Baby, I'm like a sleep.
You're my disease. What kind of song that?
Got a chick in the rehab.
Good vibe bright and early. Let's check this out. Alright, really, that's it. That's that. What's up, peoples? Welcome to the Even People Show. I'm your host. Why am I echoing today? Am I loud? Am I extra loud? I feel like I'm extra loud today. Why am I extra loud today? No, I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be. All right. Anyways, here we are. We're back again. And it's that time of the week that we jump into the Even People Show. I'm your host, Martin Matthews. If it's your first time joining the show, thank you so much for checking in. If you view later, appreciate you just as much then too. Welcome to the Even People Show. Tonight we're going to talk about rehab. If you've never joined before, we usually talk about, interesting stuff. If you don't know me personally, I'm an author, among several other things. My book is called Love Life Confrontation Expressions, Selections from the Chronicles of a Black Man. It's a book of poetry. What we do here on the show more often than not, we typically read some poetry. We also talk about topics that, traditionally men don't talk about so much. Apparently men aren't supposed to have emotions. They're not supposed to have feelings. They're not real people, if you ask some women. But we all know better than that, right? So tonight we're going to talk about rehab. It's so funny. I was listening to the Rihanna just now, and two lines in the song stood out to me. One of them was, and I'll never give myself to another the way I gave it to you. I will never give myself to another the way I gave it to you. That's definitely somebody that needs some rehabilitation, right? Another line in the song says, I've checked into rehab and you're my disease. Can you imagine? And it's crazy. It's so funny. I wrote a poem called Rehab before Rihanna even came out with that song. I had to look for it just now. I think I found it. I might read it for you later. All right, but let's get right into it. So tonight we're going to talk about rehabilitation, being rehabilitated, and all the things that are associated with that, right? I am feeling a lot better this week. Last week I was like, not so well. I'm not fully 100, I don't think, but boy, am I better than I was then. So let's get right into it. I'm back to my frisky self, and I got frisky things up my sleeve today. So here we go. Rehabilitation is, by definition, care that can help you get back to, keep, or improve the abilities you need for your daily life. Sounds simple enough, right? It is care that can help you get back to, keep, or improve the abilities you need for your daily life. Now, rehabilitation can be physical, it can be mental and or cognitive, it can be speech. Those are some of the most popular ones, and of course, it can be emotional. Maybe the things that jump out in your mind when somebody says rehabilitation is going to be, stuff like drugs, alcohol, being incarcerated, but those actually fall under mental or cognitive, because usually it is the mind that gets affected when you are suffering from, some abuse, or you are abusing some drug or alcohol, and the mind needs to be rehabilitated to where, like it said in its definition, you can get back to, keep, or improve the abilities you need to exist in everyday life. All right. Now, common causes of rehabilitation, or common reasons that will make you need some of the more popular types of rehabilitation, include injuries and trauma. You could car accident, you get a whiplash, a slip and fall, whatever it is. Now you need to be rehabilitated because some part of you needs to be worked back into its fighting shape. Yeah. You can have a stroke. Lots. If you've ever seen someone that have a stroke, I remember one of my first experiences with someone that had a stroke. It was scary for me to see the person that I knew now, saw for a couple of days ago, fully walking and okay. You have to now help them up, and their feet is not doing what it their feet's not doing what it could do before. Their hand is not doing what it could do before. Now they have to be rehabilitated to the point where now they can actually use these functions again, right? Severe infections, major surgery, a lot of time, and the surgery now, the surgery doesn't even have to be major. It could just be it could be cosmetic surgery for everything. You still have to be rehabilitated. Cosmetic surgery has gotten so popular in recent times. You have to wear certain things depending on the kind of surgery you got. You have to go through. You have to get massages. You have to do all kind of things to get to rehabilitate your body from the trauma that it experienced, right? But that's just the physical. All right. We also have the side effects of medical treatment. You have certain birth defects that require, or that might require rehabilitation. You could need to be rehabilitated from chronic pain. That's something that require rehabilitation. There's also drug and alcohol abuse, which we said are some of the more popular ones. And of course, there is incarceration. Now, let's pause here for a minute. We're talking about rehabilitation. We're talking about being rehabilitated. Now, by the time we get to the end of the show, we're gonna broaden our scope of rehabilitation, or of rehab, getting rehabilitated, right? What we're looking at so far are some of the more popular ones, some of the more things that would come to mind once you hear the term. Yeah. All right. Now, so the objectives of rehabilitation typically, like we said, is to help the individual achieve the highest level of function, independence, and quality of life possible. So you're trying to get back the person to a point where they are whole. Okay, whether it is physical, mental, or cognitive, whether it is speech, you're trying to get the person back to the point where they are whole. But like y'all know, this is the Evening People Show. And if we are on the Even People Show, we got to talk about stuff like emotional rehabilitation, relationship rehabilitation, which is not, emotional is a thing, relationship not so much a thing, but it's very much a thing in our everyday lives, and it's very much something that people need rehabilitation, or need to be rehabilitated from the things that happen in relationships. Before we get into that too deep, there rehabilitation, depending on the type that you need, Look who is here. The iconic advisor. I've missed you terribly. I have not seen you in many, many moons. And I appreciate you checking in. I watched one of your show the other day because I haven't been able to catch it live myself. I made sure I liked and or commented on it so you knew I found it. But I appreciate you checking in. I does what I can. I does what I can. I bought a book. One of these days I'm gonna come on the show and I want to bring out all the books that I have from people I know that have books. I bought one just this week. It hasn't even arrived yet. I have literally a stack of books I bought from people from high school, college. Everybody should support people they know that have stuff out there. Anyways, like I said, depending on the type of rehabilitation you need, whether it is for physical, mental, or cognitive or speech, there are different stages that you go through in each one. In fact, I was planning to start the show by saying, "Hi, I'm Martin Matthews and I'm an addict." I forgot. Anyways, stages are recovery. Now, this is usually tied to the more physical injuries that you have. Recovery is one of the stages. This is when you're simply recovering from the trauma that you experience, whether it's a broken limb, whether it is scar tissue from a burn or whatever. And then there's repair. This is when you're going through getting better again. There's the strengthened stage. We're talking about the stages of rehabilitation. The strengthening stage, when you go through getting that part of the body back to its full operational state. Let me plug this out here. To its full operational state, and then function or full function when you're now back to where you can use that part of the body or that part of the brain just like you could before, right? But like we said, this is even people show we're talking about emotional and our relationship rehab. And what does that look like? The recovery, repair, strengthen, and function steps might not be the steps to take to get you back to where you need to be after emotional trauma. You see what I'm saying? So let's get into it. Now, there are certain principles, regardless of the rehabilitation, the type of rehabilitation that you're going through. There are certain stages or certain principles that you need to follow in order to make sure that the rehabilitation is successful. All right. Some of these stages include promote promote adaptation, promote adapting. So you want to help the person to adapt to what the new situation is. You understand? So whether it is physical trauma to where somebody, got into a car accident and lost a limb, or got into an accident and lost, vision in one eye or whatever they lost, you have to help them to adapt, promote adaptation, promote them adapting to the fact that this is now your new reality. You have to accept it as what it is in order to move forward, right? Because you have to help them to adjust to now what is their new reality. All right. The other one is emphasize abilities. So emphasize the fact that I remember there was this one young man that entered the Olympics. You remember that guy that entered the Olympic on these stilts and was winning races left and right? That man had no legs. Man was a double amputee and decided to get some bouncy thing on his foot and was running and winning races with them on. You know what I mean? I think he got disqualified because they were saying that the artificial feet were giving him an advantage. That is you actually, helping someone to emphasize, even though you don't have this or you don't have that or you no longer have this or this has changed, you can still function, you can still move forward. You know what I mean? We're talking about the principles of rehabilitation, whatever form of rehabilitation it is that you want. Another one is the South African guy. Yes, it was a South African guy. That guy that had those stilts on his foot and he was winning races left and right, boy. Yeah, I don't know how long they allowed him to carry on, but that is the person I'm talking about. I don't remember what his name was. You also want to treat the whole person. Treat the whole person. So even though this thing might be the thing that is wrong, this hand or this foot or this whatever might be the thing that's wrong, you also want to build the whole person up. You know what I mean? Emotional rehabilitation is really a form of every other rehabilitation. You know what I mean? Because you really have to help the person get themselves to a place where they can actually move forward, right? It requires time, it requires education as to just you understanding what your new circumstances are, and it requires people-centered care. All right, so those are like the broad strokes of rehabilitation. Those are like the what comes to mind when you hear when you hear the term rehabilitation. Those are the more generic forms of rehabilitation. Now, like I said, we on the Even People Show, we are gonna more deal with the emotional rehabilitation, relationship rehabilitation. So let's jump right into it, right? Emotional rehabilitation is a method or steps that you work through the pain or loss and return to a stable and healthy place, right? It's steps you take to work with the pain or loss to return to a stable or a healthy place where you're now functional and can move forward, right? Um, several writers on the topic have said that you must utilize your emotional muscles, must use your emotional muscles of the mind and the heart. You have to get those realigned again before you can actually move forward. Your emotional muscles, you have to get those back. Just like somebody has stroke and you give them the ball to squeeze so that their hand function come back, or you have them do exercises so that the full function comes back. For emotional rehabilitation, you have to exercise the emotional muscles in your mind and your heart in order to get you back to the point where you need to get back to, right? Emotional rehabilitation addresses the root of the situation, the root of the addiction, the root of the hurt, the root of the trauma. You essentially have to learn how to deal with emotionally tense situations. So right now I'm just broad stroking it for you. We're absolutely going to get into more specifics here in a second, but I just want you to kind of wrap your head around the concept itself. You see what I'm saying? Like I said, emotional, you have to get to where you're dealing with the root cause of the addiction. If you're gonna of the situation, if you're actually gonna move forward, you have to learn how to deal with emotionally traumatic or emotionally tense situations if you're gonna actually be proficient in what you need to move you forward. All right. So check this. How do you get into a situation like that in the first place? Now, here's the thing: a lot of us learn about our emotions. Hi, Venice. Venice is one of my favorite people. She's always happy, and I like people that are always happy. I go to work every day, and they ask me, "How you doing?" I say, "It's another lovely day in Central Florida." Is my response every day. And they're like, "Dude, why do you always say that?" I said, "Because I know real people that are suffering, and I'm not one of them. I'm not suffering." You know what I mean? When you know what suffering look like, you have to count your blessings. I've seen suffering. I'm not suffering. Anyways, moving on. Um, a lot of us learn our emotions when we're young, right? We learn about our emotions when we are young, but we don't really have like everything you learn when you're young. You might not have a full grasp of the situation. Last week we were talking about love, whether it is finite or infinite, and one of the points that we made last week was that in order for you to deal with heartbreak, you have to be emotionally mature on some level. You have your love or your ability to love had to have developed beyond a certain point under certain conditions, and that kind of promotes your ability to actually deal with love lost, right? And if it had not been allowed to develop to a certain level, then it's more likely that you will not deal with the situation appropriately if it does arise. Now we're saying that a lot of us learn about our emotions when we're young, and as such, we do not fully understand it. Usually, it is when we're faced with a situation that makes us feel like we are not in control of said emotions. That is when now our emotion, like we have to now face our emotions head on and deal with what they are. Now, because when they're developing, you don't have a full grasp of it. Sometimes when you are when the situation is thrusted upon you, you may or may not respond to it appropriately. And this is where the need for the emotional, and if it is related to a relationship, for the relationship rehab comes in, right? Because typically, some of the more common responses are you get angry and seek revenge. You know what I mean? Because you were hurt, somebody did something to offend you, and angry and seek revenge comes naturally. You know what I mean? The blood start boiling, things that happen. Um, Another response, another common response is withdrawing from any future situation that could get you in a position where you feel that way again. So you're hurt. Someone did something to hurt you. You love and lost, and you withdraw because you're saying I. It's like Rihanna said. Like what did Rihanna say? Let's see. Rihanna said, "I never give myself to another the way I gave myself to you." That's the song I was playing at the beginning of the show. Rihanna said, "I'll never give myself to another." In the song she has called Rehab, she said, "I never give myself to another the way I gave myself to you because I don't wanna have to go to rehab again. I don't want to put myself out there again because if I put myself out there again, I put myself in a situation where I can be hurt the way that I'm hurt now. And right now I need rehab, right?" And like I'm saying, some of the more common responses um, to being hurt is that you withdraw in order to prevent yourself from getting in that situation again. Venice is saying hurt people, and they do hurt people because and sometimes that whole thing is rooted in the fact that I'm not gonna put myself in a situation I'm the one hurt again. And this is somebody that needs rehab. A hurt person that hurts someone is someone that needs rehab, is someone that needs emotional rehab, is someone that needs relationship rehab because they have been hurt and they are not dealing with the situation in a healthy way. They're not dealing with it in a productive way. They're essentially passing it on and now inflicting the same hurt onto somebody else. Um, Another response is sometimes they use substances to numb the pain. And that now create two situations that you need rehab from. You need rehab from the substance that you're abusing, and you need emotional rehab that got you there in the first place. And like I actually have you hurt other people, which is what Rennie just said, hurt people. By saying, do you think people can rehabilitate by themselves without social support? With that, it depends. I think it goes back to something we said initially that how you deal with a lot of these social situations has to do with your own emotional development and your own emotional maturity because that will help you, that will be your window to the world. It's almost like this where a lot of people are influenced by others, a lot of people are influenced by social media, a lot of people are influenced by people around them, right? But you have some individuals that are mature enough to where they have their own concept of the world, they have their own concept of things, they have their own concept of everything almost. So it's like they are not as easily influenced. Someone like that could potentially um rehabilitate themselves by just accepting, by going through the steps that we're going to mention here in a little bit. They're capable of doing it. Other times though, when persons are just not as socially or emotionally adept, they won't be able to. They're going to need some support. They're going to need somebody to guide them through, or they're going to take one of the routes that we just listed. Whether they get angry and seek revenge, they withdraw and avoid situations like that in the future. They use substances to numb the pain, or they go out and hurt somebody themselves so that they can feel better about themselves. Most time the hurt person think they are protecting themselves, and they do, because here's the thing: when you're in a situation where you are hurt, right? And this is infringing on something I'm about to talk about here in a minute. That is a natural response. That's a natural response. It's like being hit by someone and your fists come up. It's a natural response. You're hurt or you're hurting, and defending yourself is really what the most natural response is. You know what I mean? But does that actually help you to work through what it is that you're experiencing, or is it just something that you're putting out there to kind of help yourself go through? You can't rehabilitate yourself, but you can accept the situation and can seek counsel. Okay. Venice is saying to your question, Vimbai, that you cannot, in fact, rehabilitate yourself. You can accept the situation and you can seek counsel to help you go through it. I don't have any empirical evidence to show anything otherwise, so we can go with that. Bless up yourself, Bible reading, Rich Rachel in the house. All right, so one of the first step to being emotionally rehabilitated is learning how to recognize what you are feeling. Learning how to recognize what it is that you are feeling. You admit what it is you are feeling and why it is that you are feeling this way, right? But before we even go any further into the steps to the solution, let's look at some of the situations that get us into the problem in the first place. So we're talking about rehab. Initially, we talked about just the more generic reasons why people would need rehabilitation. We talk about, physical trauma, people having stroke, people needing, you know, all the different things, addicts and so on, that will make you need rehabilitation. We looked at that. We looked at the causes. We looked at some of the things that you can do. We looked at some of the steps that people usually go through to resolve those things. Then we looked at emotional rehabilitation and what that is, and the fact that it is a little bit more in depth, it's a little bit more personal, a little bit more hands on, and it's gonna really make you have to face yourself, face the situation if you're actually gonna be able to work through it. All right, now we're looking at some of the situations that get you into the position where you are in fact in need of rehab. All right, now, so one of them is you didn't recognize the signs or you ignore the signs. So let's look at that. You didn't recognize the signs or ignore the signs. So we're talking about someone who is in a relationship with someone per se who either didn't recognize the signs that the person ultimately is the person that they realize they are in the end, or they just ignore the signs. And then when the person showed them their true colors, now they're in a situation where they are hurt emotionally and they now need emotional rehabilitation. They're in a situation where they got cut deep because they put themselves out there, and now they're in a situation where they cannot actually work themselves through it, right? Another situation is evolution. Evolution meaning that you have two persons that are together, committedly so, but one has evolved past the other one, where they're no longer aligned. They're no longer aligned. So it could be a man-woman situation where they met in college, they got married, they were party people, they used to go out and this that, and the woman is at the point now. It's usually the woman, forgive me, is at the point now. It could be the man, in all fairness, is at the point now where they want to have a child and they want to settle down and cut out the partying and everything, and start building assets and do evolve. And the other person still want to go apart every pan knock. Them want their karaoke, them want their crop over, them want their wait, something name, them want their sun fest, they want their sun splash, they want it everywhere, right? And it now creates a rift in the situation, because you now have evolved into another level of your life, or you're evolving into another place that you want to be in, but the person that you're with is not there. And because of that, it creates a rift between you and the individual that you're with, and it might even cause the relationship to devolve, and now you're in a situation where you're hurt, and now you are in need of emotional rehabilitation. You're in need of relationship rehabilitation, right? Because it just is what it is. You're out there, and the person that you should be there with is not there. Now, I was talking to someone earlier today, and the example they were giving me about this was like, wife and husband. They were talking about committed relationships, and how when when it evolves and one person doesn't evolve, how it becomes hurtful and whatever. But at the same time, even if it is a side chick, even if it is the side chick that come in the relationship having expectations, and then her expectations or his expect the side, I don't know what's the male equivalent to the side chick, Joe. Even if it's Joe and him coming in the relationship, and he wants something out of it and he's not getting what he wants out of it, or she wants something out of it and she's not getting what she wants out of it, it still creates that stress. It still creates that situation where there's that rift. And if they ultimately break, that person is now in a situation where, like we say, they could decide to ruin the person's life because it didn't work out, or they could decide that they're going to actually work through the hurt that they're feeling in that situation. Another situation that could require rehab or could lead to a situation that requires rehab is cheating. And not only cheating, you could compound the cheating situation with having outside children. So you're with someone that has an outside child, and this could go either way. This could go. The more popular one, obviously, is men that have outside children. But you have situations where man and woman together, and child reach. You see it on TV all the time, and it's on TV because it happen to real people in real life, right? Where the people, somebody need like a bone marrow transplant or something like that, and when them check it out, they realize that the child is not theirs, right? You realize that the child is not. It's crazy. Anywho, let's move on. But yeah, cheating on outside children could create that situation that just leads you to require or lead you to need that rehabilitation. Now, another one is staying in a bad relationship, staying with the wild man, staying with the bad boy, staying with somebody that everybody who knows this person tell you to avoid. But because your heart is in it, you love the person or whatever, you decide that no, he loves me, no, he gonna stay, no, whatever, you stay. The flip side of that is staying in an abusive relationship where he hits me because he loves me. He no, even though he hits me, he loves me. Even though she verbally and emotionally abuses me, she loves me, right? And you tell yourself these things, and you're not realizing that you're in a situation where it's more similar to Stockholm syndrome than anything else. You're in a situation where you actually need help because you have identified and now love your captor, instead of realizing that this is somebody you should break away from. You're literally suffering from Stockholm syndrome. You now need to be rehabilitated into realizing that the situation that you're in is toxic for you, right? All right. Now, the process for rehabilitation in relationships, emotional rehabilitation, there are certain steps that you have to go through if you want to truly be rehabilitated. And one of them is you have to really take real stock, like them say back in where I'm from in Jamaica. You have to take stock of your situation. You really have to take a moment, relax, absorb the reality of the situation, cry if you need to cry. And you have to prevent yourself. You have to try not to avoid the situation or to overanalyze the situation, right? So listen to me now. You have to let yourself. It's like when somebody pass. Like when you lose someone and they say you have to allow yourself to grieve. You have to allow yourself to grieve. You have to allow yourself to relax in the situation. If you need to cry, you have to allow yourself to cry. If you need to cry more than once, if you need to cry enough, you need to cry enough. That's where you're at, right? But you cannot avoid the situation, and you should not overanalyze the situation, because both those things are destructive. If you avoid it, you're going to explode eventually. And the wrong person who not have nothing to do with nothing is likely the person that's going to get it. If you overanalyze and get trapped inside your own head, that's That's no good for nobody. Because now it's almost like you're living in an alternate reality where you're seeing everything through the window of your hurt self. And you will make things up. You will see things that are not there. You will convince yourself of things that are not real. And you'll just end up a hot mess because you're over analyzing everything. Right? And we're saying instead of doing that, just allow yourself to accept that this actually happened to me. Yes, I am a attractive woman. Yes, I am attractive man who is successful and whatever. And somebody broke my heart. Somebody did something that hurt me. Somebody did something that cut me deep. And if you need a moment to go cry, if you need a moment to go get yourself together, if you need to look in the mirror and talk to yourself for a minute just to get your bearings, do that. Take the time to acknowledge what it is that has happened to you instead of avoiding what has happened to you. And like some of the things we look out before, you go take revenge on other people, you go find other people to hurt, or you try to take revenge on the person that hurt you. No, that ain't gonna get you nowhere. That's gonna get you hurt more, right? Um, the other step you want to do, the other thing you want to make sure that you do is not rush the process. You can't rush the process. If you've been emotionally hurt, if you've loved and lost, if your relationship broke down, if you found out something you thought would have never ever 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 happened, not me, not him, not us, not her, not us, but it happened, and you're there, and you're hurt, you can't rush the process. You should not rush the process. Don't judge yourself against anybody else's standard. It takes you as long as it takes you, right? It don't matter if it takes this person that long or that person that long. That ain't got nothing to do with you. You do not let friends or social media or anybody can't tell you that this is how long this should take. You got hurt and you should recover by this time. No. If you're hurt, as long as you need, you take as long as you need to get yourself back to where you get to. Because the thing is, if you don't take that time and you just move forward, it's like rebounding. Another thing I have jotted down here for later, I said, is rebound rehab? Is rebounding rehab? If y'all want to type your response, go ahead and do that. Let me check on and see what's going on here. Even by time heals all wounds, right? So I hear, I don't know. That's what they say. I don't know, but I don't know if time by itself can heal. In fact, I had somebody on the show says time does not heal. I had someone on the show that has a book called Time Does Not Heal, actually. And when I had her on the show, she was saying, time alone does not heal. You actually have to take the steps necessary to work through the things that you need to work through. Okay, so Vimbai to the question, Venice to the question is saying, it's not. And the question was, is rebound rehab? And she said, no, it's not. Rebound is just a distraction. Rebound is just that thing that keeps you occupied instead of facing what it is. Instead of, like we said, let yourself relax and accept and cry when you need to cry. Rebound is that thing that takes your mind off the fact that you are hurt and you need to actually take the time to grieve, so to speak, over the loss of a loved one, right? Now, practice correctly identifying your emotions is the next step. Practice correctly identifying your emotions, right? So, and this is necessary because when you're not in your right headspace, you're just not in your right headspace. Let that sink in. When you're not in your right headspace, you are just not in your right headspace. You ever buy something yet and have it at your home for a while, and it's like one day you wake up and realize, did I bought this? What in the hell was going on with me when I bought this? I know someone friend of mine that was depressed for a while because something happened and they were depressed and they were going through it. And it's almost like they didn't realize they weren't going to the barber. Their house was a mess. They weren't washing their clothes. They weren't showering as often. They weren't even realizing that these things were happening to them. They were so stuck in their head, processing, processing, almost zoned out to the world until they woke up one morning and realized that, oh my God, this place is it a mess? This place is a mess. I'm a mess. Look at me. It's almost like they had a whole 3 months where they were just in la la land. You understand? And it's like this is what I'm saying. You have to practice correctly identifying your feelings. You have to be in a place where you can truly identify that this is what is happening. I am responding to this person this way because I'm hurting. I'm snapping at my children. I'm snapping at loved ones. I'm going out and taking trips and doing all this because really I'm just trying to cover something up that I should be dealing with. And instead of dealing with it, I'm covering it up. Right? Venice is saying, I agree. Time does not heal. Time will leave you in a zone where you can become weak and lost mental. And that's the same thing. I didn't even saw the comment. That's the same thing I'm speaking to now. We're a friend of mine for a good minute. They were lost in that same la la land. They were like in the twilight zone. You know what I mean? And it took them a minute. It wasn't until they were coming out of it that they realized just how far gone they were. Fun Time with Alex is saying rehabilitation healing in terms of relationship is often compared to the grieving process. It takes time. You are correct, my dear. It does take time for you to work your way through. And what you want to make sure that you do on the back end of this is you have to develop better habits. In relation to the subject, you have to develop better habits. So if it is a case where you were, let's say, attracted to the bad boy or whatever the case might be, you have to snap out of it. You have to realize that this is not the kind of person that you really want. Though they're the ones that you seem to gravitate toward, this is not the kind of person that your heart truly needs. You see what I'm saying? You have to get yourself to a place where you can truly identify your emotions, identify what's you're feeling, and go through. We said rebound was not rehab. There was another question that I had here that I wanted to pose to you guys. What was it? So should rehab help you cope or move on? Should rehab help you? Should emotional rehabilitation help you cope? Or should it help you move on? So say for example, it's one of those situations where you're in a relationship and a relationship fail or is failing, or something really significant happened. You find out, say, the cleaning lady, baby was she pregnant with for your husband. Should rehabilitation help you move on, or should rehabilitation help you deal with? In other words, should you stay, get rehabilitated, and learn how to live with? Or should rehabilitation help you kick them to the curb and then you figure out how to live after without, you know what I mean? Without him or the cleaning lady, right? Another thing that I had here for you is how much is is rehab, and these kind of intertwine. Is rehab then about you, or is rehab about the other person? Is rehab, is emotional rehab, relationship rehab, is that about you, or is that about the other person? Right? All right, so tonight we've been talking about rehabilitation. We've been talking about emotional rehabilitation, and like very similar to what we spoke about last week, kick him, then say kick him to the curb. like we were mentioning last week, where we were talking about love, whether it is finite or infinite, and we're saying, okay, rehabilitation is definitely about you, definitely about you getting yourself back to where you can function again, right? So rehab Emotional rehab, relationship rehab, um, is you really getting back to a place where you can function again. You know what I mean? You getting back to a place where you can, because here's the thing, with love and love and vulnerability are intertwined. Loving someone is essentially, in my opinion, giving yourself to the person in such a way, or giving enough of yourself to a person to where they have, if things go wrong, enough ammunition to really hurt you. It is you allowing yourself to be vulnerable around someone. It is you allowing yourself to open up your true self to someone. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to be a chameleon. Bloody hell, I can be a chameleon if I want to be. In the sense that we can all show people versions of ourselves. We can show people the side of ourselves that we want them to see. We can show people the side of ourselves that we know they will like, right? But in order for true love to actually take place, you have to actually show someone who you actually are. I hope that the person accept you as is. And if you do that and bear yourself out like that, and the person does something that makes you feel like they have taken advantage of the fact that you bore yourself like that to them, you're going to be cut deep. And in order for you to be rehabilitated, you're going to have to now put yourself in a situation where you're going to, for a second time or a third time, put yourself in that situation again. And what we're saying here is that is not a natural response. That is an unnatural response. Nobody wants to get hurt and just bounce back and put themselves back in a situation to get hurt again. You see what I'm saying? Your natural response when you get hurt is to either respond by hurting or to duck and cover. But from an emotional standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, if you ultimately want a relationship, it can't work. It can't work. It can't work because you're now going to be robbing that second person of you. You're going to be robbing yourself of true happiness or of the potential for it because you are still or have not rehabilitated or haven't been rehabilitated from what it is that hurt you in the first place. You see what I'm saying? So, and in order to do that, you have to face what it is that happened to you face on. Why can't I express myself to the person that I love or I think I love the way that I should? What is holding me back? What is preventing me from doing this? And it could be the fact that something happened before. Something happened in your past relationship. Something happened in this same relationship that you haven't truly processed. You haven't been truly rehabilitated from it because you skip one of the steps or you skip all of the steps. Your mind is now challenged on cover myself, not putting myself out there again. And you're wondering, why am I not doing the natural things that should come with the situation that I'm in? You're not doing the natural things because you're really not being rehabilitated. You really have not been rehabilitated. You need to be rehabilitated before you can act, because before you can actually have another functional relationship with another person. And if you're not, you will never be able to. You can't be in relationships all you want. You're not going to be functionally in a relationship. Hence why we have only a few real relationships. Most people are just existing in their relationships without happiness or with intermittent happiness. I agree with it, because once that relationship goes sideways, and I'm guilty of that too. I was guilty of that a lot in my life. Most relationships that I was in my life, they don't go past the first argument. The first argument for the relationship, have the relationship over. I'm that guy. I apologize. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I can't really, I've never really actually slowed down long enough to dissect it. But for most of my life, that's how my relationships went. They don't pass the first argument. Before we get to the first argument, the relationship done, I'm gone. Was that right? I don't know, but that was the way I knew. That was the only way I knew how. You understand? When it was good, it was good, it was great. But from I hit that first argument and it got down, yeah, now I got too much going on up here to actually bounce back to what would constitute normalcy. You know what I mean? And I know that a lot of people out there, they do that. You know what I mean? You something happen and you go in defense mode because what it is, I think a lot of the time it's kind of like an ego thing. It's kind of like a thing like I didn't have to put myself out there, but I put myself out there and now here I am. You know what I mean? I should have known better. I could have known better, but I put myself out there and now here I am. So it's almost like it's like a, you know, we did a show called Punked a while back. It's almost like you feel like you got punked. You know what I mean? I'm like, I shouldn't get punked. I'm not the person that get punked. Oh, me? But you're just hurt. You're just hurt. You actually need rehabilitation. You actually need to be rehabilitated from the hurt that you're experiencing. And we just listed a set of steps that you have to go through in order to truly get to the other side functional to actually be able to go into a relationship again. A lot of people rebound from relationship to relationship. And when things reach to a certain level, they just they cruise in their they cruise. And then something happen and then bounce and then rebound and then gone again, cruising again. You know what I mean? As opposed to truly taking the time necessary to rehabilitate themselves. Wait till they get themselves. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing with not getting the rehabilitation necessary. It skews your perspective. It skews your perspective. So something that you should be seeing a particular way, you're not seeing it that way at all. Something that should be staring you in the face, you're not seeing. It's not staring you in the face like it would if you were objective. And you're not objective because you're not rehabilitated. And you're not rehabilitated because you're still hurting. And instead of accepting the hurt and working through it, you're deflecting. You understand? So your objectivity, your perception is off because you are still hurting. You're still coming from a place where your vision is not clear because you just now see clear because you still see red. Or you still see some version of red because you're still pissed off from whatever pissed you off. Right? You have to take the time and process and give it time until you get to the point where you can actually move forward again. And you have to be careful along the way because you might get persons attached to you or you get attached to persons that you're really not at. You shouldn't really be in their lives because you just gonna mess them up too, like you're messed up now. You're messed up now because you still processing something that until it's processed, you are not in an objective enough state to make the decisions that you're making now from a relationship standpoint because you still have too much like they call it baggage. You have too much baggage, yo. You have to get rid of all that baggage before you can process anything else. You got too much baggage, bro. Gotta get that sorted. Anyways, I hope y'all got something out of this. I'm gonna read 2 poems for y'all today. I'm gonna read 2 poems for y'all today. I actually wrote a poem called Rehab, and I think felt like I should have had something to wrap up with, but whatever, maybe I will later. And I have a poem in the book called Gray Areas. Rehab is not in the book. So you're going to get 2 for the price of 1 today, my friends. We're going to read Gray Areas because I think Gray Areas talks about some of the things that we've been looking at. See if you can catch them as I read. I like Gray Areas. Gray Areas, written in 2012, it says, "We're what I know." Then I'll check your comment here in a minute. It says, "We're what you know meets what could have been. When you know you shouldn't, yet you jump in. Where the black meets the white, but then not quite. Where inhibitions seem to disappear, but just for a night. Where the brain says no, but the body says yes. When you wake up, can't remember, looking for evidence of sex, where the rules are there, though not quite defined, when it's all in the air, just waiting on time, when you're not sure if you're coming or going, and it all stands still, when you say you won't, but then maybe you will, when what you just did for the last time was the third last time. You gotta love those. When you'll never think of it again, yet it's always on your mind. When the warning lights are flashing, still you tiptoe in. When you stop and say a prayer just before you sin. When you hear your mouth speak of things your brain can't decide. When you don't stop yourself slipping, though you don't want to slide. When your heart's not hearing what your brain is saying and you're weak in the knees. When he's bad for you and you know it, still you cherish moments like these. Gray areas. And I think gray areas speaks to somebody on the rebound or somebody that's rebounding all over the place and is just in a space that is just gray. They're just in a space where it's almost like they got hurt and they're just like, whatever goes now. We're just out to have fun and we go paint the town red every Friday night or every chance we get. It's one of the lines says, when you stop yourself, when the warning lights are flashing, still you tiptoe in. When you stop and say a prayer just before you sin, you know what you're doing. You shouldn't be doing, but because you're hurting, but because you have not yet been rehabilitated, when you're still in the process of responding to the hurt, when you're now mad and you're just out there swinging for the fences. By saying when what you did for the last time was the third last time. When what you did for the last time was the third last time. This is something that you are struggling with. This is something that you need to be rehabilitated from. And you're just not rehabilitated from it because you're not actually going through the steps necessary. You're just responding. Your emotions are raw and you're just responding to them. You're not taking the time necessary to hurt. You don't want nobody to see you cry, especially if it's a guy. You don't want nobody to see you cry. So you just like go out there and do road. That's not constructive, my dude. You understand? And if it's a woman, that's even worse. That's not constructive, my girl. I can't. That's a do road. So you have to take time and grieve. You were hurt. You were hurt. Take time to acknowledge the fact that you were hurt. See it for what it is. Let me see the points that we made it have here. See it for what it is. It says, let you cry if you need to. Don't rush the process. Take time and go through the process. Practice the corrective actions and develop better habits as it relates to these things so that you can truly move forward. I'm going to get this last comment. I'm going to read the next one I have for you. It is because men don't like to be emotional and accept. Oh, yeah, this is a question. Is it because men don't like to be emotional to accept they need healing? I think their machismo and testosterone and ego has a lot to do with it. And when they could just sit down and give themselves time to heal. No, them say, nah, man a hot boy, man can't go around. Man can't get any girl. Man can't go around tonight and get girl. So they do just that, and them go around and them get girl, and tomorrow them get another one. And now them have three. But that's not really them. That's not really addressing the issue. The fact is they got hurt by somebody or they love someone and they ruined the situation. And instead of going back and fixing the situation, they'd rather not deal with all the awkwardness surrounding it. The fact that somebody that they're with is now pissed at them. And the response that they want, they're not getting that response because the person is still upset. The person know that they lied. The person know that they cheated. The person know that they do this and they do that. And they don't want to be in that situation where it's awkward now. You know what I mean? So the spark and the fire that they had and enjoyed and love is no longer there, but it's their fault, and they don't want to admit that it's their fault. So instead of admitting that it's their fault, they go the road, right? Because that's easier. That is you evading the situation. That is you avoiding the situation. That is you disguising the problem as something else. And now you have a problem with the person who you offended by your action, and now making them out to be the bad guy. But it's really because you have not slowed down long enough to realize that you are the one that is wrong. You are the one that needs to soak it in and rehabilitate yourself. And when you do that, you will be able to approach a person more appropriately and realize that the hurt that they are feeling is valid. And they might need some time to work through that stuff. But instead of doing that, you deflect it and move forward in any direction you can, or in every direction you can. You know what I mean? Because man a bad man, man a big man, and man can get man fear have enough girl and girl in a bung. All right, so I have one more for y'all, and then I'm gonna bounce. I have to make up for last week's show. 'Cause I was not well last week, but I'm well today. Run better. All right, so the last one I'm going to read for y'all is actually called Rehab. I feel like I'm loud as ever, but whatever. Rehab. I wrote Rehab when? In 2020. Okay, Rehab is popular. I think it's in the next book. Y'all getting such gems for free. Share. But I love y'all, so let's do it. Rehab. I haven't read this in a while, so if I stumble over my words, just forgive me. Okay, mate. Okay, good. It says, the change in her behavior was evident. She's using again. So much hard work undone because of this one thing. All this time sober, now back to square one. In the world of punishment, she's an unwavering glutton. Hi, my name is Jill, and I'm an addict. I've been clean for 3 months, but I can't kick the habit. I relapsed yesterday, but to be honest, it felt good. I felt alive again, just like I knew I would. It's the elated feeling I get deep down in my belly. The elevated euphoria that seems to take over me. Each time feels better than the last. The best I've ever had. Each time ends up like the first. With me back in rehab. Why do I allow this thing to control me? Weighed against the rest of my life, this is insanity. I know it's crazy, I do. But then I use again. I can't quite put it in words. There's just something about him. Something about the way he makes me feel whenever I'm in his presence. He's a drug and I'm addicted. I inhale his essence. And though I stand and share, in my next relapse, I'll be complicit. He's worth every moment in rehab. I'll keep coming back. It works if you work it. The end. The end, yo, dude. This, yeah, I haven't read that in probably since I wrote it in 2020. But I like that. I like that. I didn't. That one had a little twisty on it there. I like that. I like that, Martin. That was a good poem, mate. All right, people. That's the ball game. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you actually, got something from this whole rehab business. I got something from it for my own personal self. I may or may not do what I got, but I got it anyways. So if you got something, good on you. You have been watching the Evening People show. I always appreciate when you guys check in. I'm your host, Martin Matthews, and next week We will do this all over again. And until then, take care of yourselves. All right? Peace. Let's try this again. Peace.